Welcome to the Analyst, dated 17th of Jan 2024. In this lecture, we'll look at 5 important articles from the Indian Express and the Hindu. The first will be regarding Himalayas without the snow. Then we'll look at Competition Commission of India. Then we'll understand the DRDO reforms. And we'll map the Ladakh region and we'll understand what is PM Kisan Yojana. Now, the first article is about the lack of snowfall in the Himalayas, and this pertains to our GS1 Geography and GS3 Environment as well as Disaster Management. Now, let us recap how the Himalayas were formed. So, firstly, we had a supercontinent. Named Pangaea, and we had a super ocean called Panthalassa. Now this Pangaea, Panthalassa, they were two bodies on our earth. And now what happened is that this Pangaea, it broke into two. One part went to the north, the other part went to the south. The southern part was called Gondwana land. You all know this. Now a part of this Gondwana land, it again broke up. A part of this Gondwana land broke up and it started to move northwards. Now in the north, what we had? In the north, we had the northern parts. Northern parts of what? Of Pangaea. This northern parts, today we know as Eurasia. So Eurasia was here and the Indian plate was coming towards the Eurasian plate. Now please appreciate that the Eurasian plate is a gigantic plate. And the Indian plate, being a smaller plate, it started to subduct as it came near the Eurasian plate. In between these two land masses was a sea. What was the name of the sea? It was Tethys Sea or Tethys Sea. Now all these sediments that were there in this Tethys Sea, they were marine sediments. Now what happens if I compress something? If I compress metal, what happens? It bends. So, if there is a ductile material, if there is a material which is more flexible and I compress it from two sides, what will happen? Naturally, there will be some amount of folding. Now, we know that there are two types of these forces. Either they can be compressive or they can be tensile. Now, whenever we have compressive forces, you will have only folding. When you have compressive forces or tensile forces, you can also have faulting. So in our case, what was happening? In our case, this large piece of body called the Indian plate was coming towards a greater land mass which is of even larger size, even larger mass. So eventually what happened? It subducted. As this subduction was happening, what will happen to the water? The water will move sideways. So Tethys Sea was in between. The water went left and right, and the sediments, it was compressed, and this compression led to the formation of what? The young fold mountains that we know as Himalayas. Now simultaneously, we must also appreciate that Himalaya is not a single mountain. It is not a single hill. We must appreciate that this is a series of ranges, a series of parallel ranges. And we must also appreciate that these ranges, the most steepest, the most loftiest of the mountains are found in the northern side. Now let's take a simple example. Let's say I have a car which is more fragile. So let's say I have a smaller car, and this car, it comes and collides. So once this car collides, what will happen to this car? The frontal part of this car, it will bend, it will break, right? So there will be some folding. What will happen to the side part? What will happen to the side part of the car? So there will be some minor scratches, minor cracks. But what will happen to the rear part of this car? Nothing will happen. So majority of the collision has happened where? At the front part of the Indian plate. So you will see the loftiest of mountains. You will see the loftiest of mountains in the northern parts of Himalayas. On the other hand, there are some broken ridges. on the east and west. So what I was saying is that you have a car and this car goes on to collide to a wall. So majority of the damage will happen where? Majority of the folding will happen where? At the frontal part, and there will be some minor scratches on the east and west. Now, having said that, we have understood that these Himalayas, they are extremely lofty. Which Himalaya I am talking about? The Himalayas which divide us, which separate us from the Tibetan plateau. And where is this Tibetan plateau? This is your Tibetan plateau. So it is a frontier which divides us from China. Now, this particular lofty mountains, they are parallel ranges, and one of these lofty ranges is called the Himadri. And Himadri has a height of 6,000 meters. It has a height of 6,000 meters. Now you must also appreciate this moment that before Himadri, what kind of mountain ranges we have? So we have the Trans-Himalaya. We have the Trans-Himalaya. So if I want to classify the Himalayas into, let's say, some parallel ranges, so the first one will be set of parallel ranges which is called the Trans-Himalaya. Then I have the Himadri or the Greater Himalayas. Then I have the Middle Himalayas, or which are also known as Himachal. Then you have the last of the Himalayas, and these are Shivaliks. At times we go for a regional division also, which is known as the Purvanchal Hills. Now, amongst all of these ranges, which is the loftiest? The Himadri. Question is, if a mountain is having height of, let's say, 6 kilometer or 8 kilometer, or the average height of 6 kilometer, so do you think the winds will able to simply pass through these mountains? If I draw this line, and this line, I tell you that this line has an average height of 6 kilometers. So can a simple wind come here and pass through these mountains? The answer is absolutely no. Similarly, can I say the Siberian winds, the cold winds which are coming from the cold desert regions north of Tibet, can they come and they cross the Great Himalayas? The answer again, unfortunately, is no. So fortunately, unfortunately, these winds are not able to pass, which makes the Great Himalaya a very good wind barrier. Now, because of this wind barrier, what will happen? So let's say we have a 6 kilometer of barrier standing in front of us. Now winds are coming, they are blowing from both the sides. Now let's say you have some wind which has no moisture, and here you have some moisture. Now let's take a simple example. Let's say we heat water. So what happens? It turns into water vapor. Now what if we cool water vapor? What will happen to water vapor? It will again come back to the liquid form. Now what happens is that you have some hot moist air which is coming towards the Himalayas. What are these hot moist air? What can be the source? Let's say some local low pressure system, or let's say the southwest monsoon. Because of any reason, some moist wind is coming towards the Himalayas, and these winds, they cannot escape anywhere. They have to move along the Himalayas, so they will be dragged along the slopes of the Himalayas. Simultaneously, we must also understand that whenever we visit a hill station, what happens? We are, let's say, in Delhi, and let's say we visit Shimla. So the temperature usually drop. Similarly, can I say that if I send a small air packet up in the air, will it cool down? The answer is yes. This is the second point. The third point is that usually a hot air packet, it is able to hold more moisture. A hot air packet, That means if the ambient temperature is, let's say, 25 degrees Celsius, then the air packet will have more, it will be able to hold more water vapor. On the other hand, if it is 10 degrees Celsius, it will be able to hold less water vapor. So what is happening, that I am sending this air packet which is at 25 degrees Celsius, it has a lot of moisture. I am forcing it to rise because of the barrier that is Himalayas. So what will happen? So this will lead to change of state from water vapor to liquid. And this will trigger what? This will trigger precipitation. This will trigger precipitation. Now the form of precipitation can be snow, it can be hail, it can be simple water droplets, rain droplets, right? So different forms of precipitation. That way, in that direction we will not go. But we understand one simple thing, that the moment you have a hot, moist ball of air which is forcibly rising against the slope of the Himalayas, it will lead to precipitation in one form or the other. Now, in our previous slide, we saw that you have a 6-kilometer barrier. 6-kilometer barrier. And in this 6-kilometer barrier, can I say that the winds will be forced to rise from any direction? If I am coming to the Himalayas, I am being forcibly rising, and therefore I am asking you to produce something called as orographic rainfall. So all I need here is any air packet which comes towards Himalayas, right? Any wind which comes towards Himalayas and it has some moisture. So moisture dominant air packet, if it comes towards Himalayas, it will lead to some localized rain or not. Now, what will happen if I tell you that this is the Indian part of Himalayas and this is the China part of Himalayas? Can I say that this 6-kilometer of height, the winds are not able to scale, and so majority of the precipitation will happen on the Indian side, and this leads to creation of a cold desert situation north of the Great Himalayas, right? Now, what do you understand, or how do you get this kind of moisture? How do you get this kind of wind in the Himalayas? So there are very few sources. 3 sources that we can list is A, either it can be western disturbance, WD, let's call it WD, or it can be a localized low pressure system. What is a low pressure system? So you have low pressure anywhere, winds will come towards this low pressure. And then if winds are coming from all the sides, where will the wind go? It will rise. And if I draw this in this direction, so winds will rise, and as winds rise, what did I tell you? It will cool down, and as it cools down, it will condense, it will create our clouds. And whenever we have clouds, there is a tendency to have rainfall. Yes or no? The answer is yes. You will have a tendency to rainfall. You cannot be sure that you will have rainfall unless and until you have rain bearing clouds. You have good condensation nuclei, good ambient conditions for rainfall. You will not have actual rainfall. So at least cloud formation is there. So if you have a localized low pressure system anywhere, let's say nearby Shimla, we have a localized low pressure system created in Kalka. So that can lead to orographic rainfall in Shimla, because the winds will rise, so it will cool down. Sudden downpour can lead to cloudburst. Similarly, what can happen is that my southwest monsoon winds, they can reach up till Himalayas, right? Now, what is the direction of these winds? So here you have what? You have the mascarene high pressure. From mascarene high pressure only, these winds are coming towards you. Yes? So can I say these winds will also reach the Himalayas? Yes or no? Right? These winds can reach to Himalayas. Another branch of the southwest monsoon, which is the Bay of Bengal branch, it will also collide with the Himalayas, and let's draw Himalayas like this. So this branch will also collide with Himalayas. Yes or no? And it will again lead to precipitation. Another model is that if you have western disturbance. Now, whenever you understand a concept, whenever you have very good conceptual clarity on any particular topic, then you are able to define it in very simple terms. So, how can we define western disturbance? How can we define western disturbance? So, one way to look at it is that it is nothing but a low pressure system again. Yes, this low pressure system is coming to India. From where? From west to east. And it is intercepted. It is intercepted by whom? By again the Himalayas, the greater Himalayas. 6 kilometers of height cannot escape these mountains unless and until you avoid these mountains, right? So you are going to be intercepted by the Great Wall of Himalayas, right? And once you are intercepted, you will lead to orographic rainfall in this region. And given that you have very high altitude, so usually it leads to snowfall. Now this year, this western disturbance, it has been completely impacted. This flow of snow that comes when? It comes in winters. So you have snowfall in Kashmir, you have snowfall in Manali, in Lahul Spiti. When? During winters. And so you have lots of ski resorts where people go out to have these snow related activities. So it is also about, let's take an example of winter Spiti circuit. This winter Spiti circuit, it generates a lot of income for the local people. So if you do not have snow, you cannot have these activities. And if you cannot have these activities, naturally the economies are hurt, the families are hurt. Now this year, we are not having such high amount of snowfall. And we have understood how the snowfall is coming to India. It is coming from west as a low pressure system. But who brings this low pressure system to India? It is the subtropical westerly jet stream. It is a jet stream. A jet stream is usually blowing faster than winds, the normal winds that we see. And they are blowing at a higher height, but still they are being intercepted by the Himalayas. Now what happens is that if you know a little about the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Ocean, you will understand that two contrasting winds are coming in contact in this region. One very cold air mass is coming from, and we are talking about which region? We are talking about Atlantic. So please shift, try to imagine that west of Mediterranean, here you have a Arctic region which has a cold air mass, and you have the equatorial region which has a warm air mass. Now these two large air masses are air packets of continental size. So if an air packet is coming from west, from east, and they are, let's say, colliding, so a front is formed. And because of these front, phenomena called temperate cyclones is generated. Now this temperate cyclone is again a low pressure system. So this temperate cyclone, if with the subtropical jet stream it is traveling towards India, it is being called as western disturbance. So the temperate cyclones are carried by the subtropical westerly jet stream from west to east, and they are intercepted by the great Himalayas, which lead to snowfall in the Himalayas and rain in other parts of northern plains. This is nothing but your western disturbance. This, if it is being hit, how it will impact us? It is impacting, I told you, the economy. It is impacting my drainage. How it is impacting? And this is one of the classic examples that you can anytime use in your essays, in your answer writing, whenever we are talking about climate change, whenever we are looking at changing patterns of weather and it directly affecting the people. Then you are looking at drainage. Can I say that the entire South Asian region, So India alone has a population of more than 140 crore, right? The entire South Asian region is dependent on the Himalayas for the glaciers. And these glaciers, they are sources of our perennial rivers. Perennial rivers like the Indus River system, the Gangetic River system, the Brahmaputra River system. Now, can I say that if I do not have snowfall, so where will the new snow come from? My glaciers will have lesser snow. If it has less snow, the glacier is called as receding glacier. So if there is glacial recession, what will happen? Less water will be released for our rivers in summers. After winter, what will you have? You will have summers. So in few months, you will have scorching heat in Leh, Ladakh, in Jammu and Kashmir. Because of this heat, the glaciers will melt, but the glacier has not been recharged this time. This recharge happens through western disturbance. And if this recharge is not happening and this glacial recession is happening, then what are we opening up? We are opening up new areas of pollution. Gases which were trapped beneath ice, lands which were trapped beneath ice, they are being opened up. Water is receding, glacier is receding, so water is also receding in our rivers. Will it not directly affect an agrarian country like India? A country where approximately 60% of people are directly associated with the agrarian economy. If you are looking at the direct and indirect engagement, can I say if 60% people are directly indirectly engaged with agrarian ecosystem, and out of those 60%, if I pick 89% of these people are dependent, 89% of our water that we use is going towards agriculture. So this 89% of water that we use is coming from, let's say, groundwater, is coming from surface water, is coming from our rivers. So if the overall water is decreasing, again it is affecting our drinking water needs, our agrarian needs. So one dry spell of western disturbance, it can lead to, again, a cascading set of challenges for India, right? Now, if you look at the rainfall distribution of India, one thing you will notice that north of the Himalayas, you have a cold desert type of condition, right? Because the winds are not able to pass. On the other hand, you will see that you have fair amount of rainfall on the slopes of the Himalaya. Why? Because if you have Himalayas here, these winds are forcibly turning here and leading to rainfall. Now think about it, that these regions are any which way getting very low rainfall. The only way they are being recharged is through western disturbance. And if the western disturbance is decreasing in terms of snowfall, then naturally these regions which are naturally arid, these regions will be further dry, and it can also lead to out-migration of people because of lack of drinking water, right? Why are we building ice stupas? Because we need to conserve water. Why are we talking about glacial recharge? Because we need water when it is dry. Now, one thing that you must appreciate is what are the reasons. So multiple times, multiple authors, they are talking about different reason being ascribed to the changing patterns of western disturbance. One common answer is climate change. Another aspect is El Nino. Then another author says it is also happening when there is La Nina. Point being, if you're looking at the Indian or the entire South Asian region, what do you see? You see that here there is Mascarene high pressure. There is, let's say, Tibetan low pressure. Now think about it. Let's say you have here high pressure or you have here low pressure. Here, let's say, just for example, let's say here you have high pressure. So you have some ascertained pressure systems everywhere, right? Now, can I say that Because of this high pressure, some winds will go towards low pressure, some winds will go towards low pressure, some winds will go towards low pressure. This is but not natural. But can I say that if I affect the low pressure here, if I somehow destroy the low pressure here, will it also not affect the high pressure here and conversely the low pressure here? Why? Because it is nothing but the four wheels in a cog. So in a system, there are low pressure, high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, and they're supporting each other. So if you have a El Nino or a La Nina, you are essentially saying that I am changing the pressure systems in nearby the coast of Peru. So if I am doing that, will it also not affect the pressure systems in Darwin, Australia, or for that matter in Mascarene High, or for that matter the Tibetan Low? So one system, if it is destabilized, one particular component of a system, if it is destabilized, will it not destabilize the other regions? The answer is yes. So this is the biggest reason that in the last 4 years, 3 years were La Nina years, and now we have a El Nino year. And the problem becomes even worse because during El Nino, India doesn't receive good amount of monsoon. There is a monsoon deficit. So already you are having a monsoon deficit, on top of which there is lack of glacial recharge. There is lack of snowfall. So it points out to the changes that are happening all around us because of climate change. Now, one thing that you can write about is, and this you should write because I am expecting a similar kind of question in the near time, that the Himalayas is constantly juggling between the challenges of an extraordinary downpour. Extraordinary downpour we saw at the early part of 2023. We saw a lot of incessant rainfall in the Himalayan region, and then long periods of dry spell. So are we not looking at the dry spell right now? Yes. So it is juggling between these two. So the fragile Himalayan ecosystem, it is constantly being tested in these days, and simultaneously we have a lot of hazards. So discuss 10 marker, write it down, try to write and try to submit it on your comments. Try to do it for once. I will personally go through your answers. Let's look at the Competition Commission of India. Now the context is that CCI has refuted all the allegations against PVR for abuse of dominant position. Now this particular topic I have taken up in a previous analyst, and it happened that this topic was directly asked in the UPSC mains. So it is a favorite area now that it has been asked. So pay good attention, and we need good content on this type of topics. So we had something called as MRTP Act. Now the idea was that we were in a socialist economy, and in a socialist economy, anyone who was growing too much was being asked to stop. Any particular company which had a good potential or which was going with good revenues, good EBITDA, was asked to slow down and to compensate for the losing companies, to compensate for the laggards. Because the laggards cannot grow, so the front runners were asked to slow down. Or can I say cross subsidization was happening, right? Simultaneously, private players and private engagement was avoided at best. Now, the times changed with liberalization. We went to adopt the free market economy. We invited players, the global players. We asked our entrepreneurs, and today we are asking our startups to create companies, to create value, to share wealth. Economic survey is talking about wealth creation, that we should not hate wealth creation. The entire country should move towards a $3 trillion, $4 trillion, towards a $10 trillion economy. That means there will be bigger companies coming in, bigger companies who will try to eat up smaller companies. There will be giants who will eat up 5 to 10 companies a day. So that kind of structure can also happen if there is too much of growth. But is it fair on a company to be, let's say, that a bigger shark, a bigger company is coming and overnight it is taking over without the due compliance? So there must be some mechanism where I can check that the bigger players, the Facebook, the Amazon, the large conglomerates of the world, private equity firms like BlackRock cannot overnight take over an entire industry or a sector of India. Now, we want to also look at our strategic interest, right? So, let's take a simple example. Let's say in the telecom sector, the government thinks that there should be 3 to 4 players. Now, if there is a company going after the other 3 companies through abuse of dominance, through using a lot of money, through using some amount of, let's say, deep pockets. So, will the regulator or will the government try to stop such unfair practices? Right? So there must be some calculation in government policy where it is looking at, let's say, in this particular sector we can have 7 companies, in this particular sector we can have 5 large companies, in this sector we cannot have much of private participation, we should have mostly government companies. A good example is defense PSUs. Now, so the Competition Commission is to ensure A, that there is competitive market. B, it is to look at any big player not abusing the market, not abusing the customers, or not eating up smaller companies. So that is the whole idea of the Competition Act. Now, the Competition Act, it has some features, and why this particular news, this particular issue was taken up to the Competition Commission of India is because PVR was a giant in terms of theatres. PVR acquired Inox. A few years ago, it acquired Inox. So it became PVR Inox. Now, after this acquisition, and this acquisition has been given go ahead. This acquisition has been given go ahead by CCI. Then only it happened. But after this acquisition, can we say that this particular sector, there is one very large player and others are very small fragmented players? So this market has been, a national market has been created in terms of cinema distribution. So the allegation was that because of this dominant position, PVR Inox, they are favoring the larger directors, the deep pocket producers, etc. Or any movie where they also have some commercial interest whatsoever. Now, when we are looking at the Competition Act, there are some features. A, that there are some agreements which are by the face of it. That means I am rejecting the moment I see such acts. So 2 types of deals we can make in an agreement. One type of agreement I can have, let's say I am Inox and I am having an agreement with PVR. This is called a horizontal agreement. On the other hand, I am Inox and I want to sell some food, okay, and this food, let's say I am tying up with KFC, with Burger King, with Domino's. So I am a ticket seller, I am a theater. A theater is tying up with whom? With a food company. So this is a vertical agreement. Now what happens is that if we are going for horizontal agreement, then naturally both of us or 3 of us combined together we can capture market. So that means any such agreement which is horizontal in nature is prima facie or on the face of it anti-competitive. Because what I will say, I am talking to PVR, so Inox is talking to PVR. Naturally, the moment we are merging, we are a threat to the entire market which is behind us, right? So let's say Domino's is merging with Pizza Hut. So will it not be a threat to all pizza distribution companies? Yes. So similarly, that is a horizontal agreement. Vertical agreement is, let's say I am manufacturing, I am Eicher Motors and I am manufacturing, let's say my Royal Enfield. And I tie up with, let's say, studs for helmet. I tie up with Woodland for boots. So this is called a vertical arrangement. Vertical arrangements are on the face of it, they are competitive. On the face of it, they are competitive, but horizontal agreements, on the face of it, they look anti-competitive. That means they must be, these kind of agreements are to be checked by CCI. Now, what else? What else the act does? So the act is looking at prohibition of anti-competitive arrangements, agreements. This arrangement can also happen over a cup of coffee. It can also happen on a contract, a signed contract, and it prohibits the abuse of dominance. Now, what do you mean by dominance? So let's say I have 60% market share and I have $200 billion company. Will I not abuse any particular sector? I can abuse. So dominance is not bad. Being big is not bad. Having wealth is not bad. But abusing that wealth, abusing the size of your company is anti-competitive in nature. So that is prohibition of abuse of dominant position. It happens in section 4. And in section 3, we are looking at anti-competitive agreements where we saw the horizontal and vertical agreements. Then we are looking at regulation of combination. Now, what do you mean by regulation of combination? What do you mean by this combination? So, A plus B acquiring C, or A plus B plus C simply. A can buy out B. Please understand this. I can buy out a company simply. A has $200 billion. Can it buy a $1 billion company? What I will call? I will call this as acquisition. I have bought a company. The way you are buying shirt, they are buying company. Okay? So one company has been bought. Another company will be bought. Another company. So they are acquiring companies. Another term is amalgamation. Or I can say merger. Merger. What do I mean by merger? So I am saying A plus B. It will become a combined entity. For example, PVR Inox. It is now a combined entity, a single entity. On the other hand, in the previous example, what I did, as a big player, I bought, let's say Reliance. It starts to buy 2 startups, each for 1,000 crores. So they are simply acquisitions of Reliance. They are not merged into. That means they have not become a single entity. Reliance will not merge, it will buy out these companies. So it totally depends upon what kind of corporate structure you want to take. So this type of combination. Then another can be that I have a very big company, and let's take the example of Adani Enterprises. So I am Adani Enterprises, and within Adani Enterprises, I have a company called Adani Airports. And tomorrow I want to bring an IPO of Adani Airports. So what will happen? I will demerge my business. So I will do what? A minus B. Okay. So all these type of combinations, A plus B, A minus B, A adding, B, C, D, whatever, acquiring. So those are combination. So in all these conditions, the Competition Act triggers. That means what? That means CCI is a regulator, which is a statutory body under the Competition Act. This statutory body will check on all these things, whether PVR and Inox, they are going for an agreement which is anti-competitive. Okay, if it is anti-competitive, it will be declared null and void. So it has quasi-judicial powers naturally. Then abuse of dominance. Let's say I am a telecom player and I go and I complain that you see there is abuse of dominance in the telecom market. I am a naturally debt-ridden company. I cannot pay my debts also, and simultaneously everyone else is eating my share. So CCI will check into the abuse of dominance. Has it happened? Has a complaint gone against Jio? Yes, right? But it was given a clean chit. Then what happened on a regulation, on combination? So this case itself, the PVR Inox, has it gone for permission before CCI? We have taken in the analyst an example called HDFC and HDFC Bank. So these two entities, they merged together. So if they merged together, they had to take the go ahead from CCI. That's a approval from the regulator. So these are the 3 different areas where CCI looks into all kind of allegations. Now, what are some famous rulings, right? So in 2012, CCI imposed a fine of $910 million on 11 cement companies for cartelization. Now, what do you mean by this word cartel? What is cartel? What are you exactly doing? So let's say four of us, we sit together. We are four giant cement companies, and we say, let's fix the price of each bori of cement at this much. So now what I'm doing is I am creating some barriers of entry, because I am selling the cement at such a price that no new player can come, invest, create a cement plant and sell at the same price. So nobody will buy if they don't sell at the same price. On the other hand, if I know that there is no company which is coming to compete with us, can I say that on top of what profit I am making, let's say 25%, 30%, I want to, let's say, add some premium, 10 rupee extra. Why? Because all of us, we know, each of us are old players, and the cement market, we control everything. So let's increase the price of each bori of cement by 10 rupees. So everyone is now increasing the price and they are selling at same price. This is cartelization, right? So entry barriers, exit barriers. Or let's say we are playing pass in the pass. So what happens? There are tenders. So four of us are sitting and one of us says, I will go first. I'll say, okay, I'll go the next. Then the other person say, in the next tender, I will go. So what are we doing? Pass by pass. Again, behaving like a cartel. So these kind of activities, this is extremely dangerous for an economy. Why? It creates entry and exit barriers. So if the people on the top, they create entry barriers. So if, let's say, in the cement industry, you have ACC. So if ACC starts creating a cartel with all the other cement companies, so what can happen? So other smaller players, they cannot enter. So this particular issue was highlighted multiple times because the price of cement was extraordinarily high. Then in 2013, $7 million was imposed on BCCI also. So BCCI, why? Because it is a single player. Now who manages the Indian cricket team? BCCI. So it has absolute 100% monopoly. So it can very well abuse. It is having a very dominant position and it can very well abuse. So because it abused, so a fine was levied. Then 258 crore on airline industry for cartelization in determining the fuel surcharge on air cargo. So you add 1 rupee. So let's say Zomato add 1 rupee in your cart. Swiggy also adds 1 rupee in your let's say cart. Then next day 2 rupee, 3 rupee. Now let's assume that Swiggy and Zomato, they own the entire market of, let's say, food delivery. So if they start cartelizing, who will be the person who will be affected most? It is the people. And so the main idea of the Competition Act is to promote competition, healthy competition amongst the players, and to also ensure that the public interest is kept at large. Discuss the role of Competition Commission of India in containing abuse of dominant position by multinational corporations in India. Refer to recent decisions. Let's look at DRDO reforms. This is your GS3, internal security. Now, let's look at some of the entities which are operating in our market in terms of defense sector. So we have the Bharat Dynamics Limited, Bharat Electronics Limited, HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. We have the Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders. You have the Garden Reach. So all these companies, or Cochin Shipyard for that matter, these are the listed entities which are already there in India, which are working in the defense sector. Now, the idea today is to go towards Atmanirbhar defense. That means we want to curtail our dependency, our core dependency in terms of imports. The way we are looking at, let's say, Su-30, we are looking at, let's say, Rafale, we are looking at these strategic weapons and we are procuring it from outside. So over the period of time, if we do not create an ecosystem within our country, how will we manufacture the basics to the advanced weaponry that India will need for its internal and external security, particularly because we are situated in a vulnerable neighborhood when it comes to security, that we have a notorious terrorism prone country, that is Pakistan, and then a person who wants to foot the bill of Pakistan, which is China. Now, so Atmanirbharta in defense is extremely important. Now, some examples that you can keep as case studies and use in any of these examples, any of these answers that you write, is your LCA Tejas with 60% indigenization. Then you have advanced, this is called ALH, advanced light helicopters. Then you have the T-90 tanks, the main battle tanks. Then you have the Arjun battle tank. Then you have LRSAM. What is LRSAM? Yes, what is LRSAM? Extremely important things for your prelims. Yes, you make a list of India's weaponry. It becomes very important for your prelims. LRSAM is your long range surface to air missile. Long range surface to air missile. Now, what kind of companies are? Then we have BrahMos, which is a collaboration of India and Russia. We have the Akash surface to air missile. So all these examples we have. Again, what kind of companies are we looking at? We are looking at the Goa shipyard. We are looking at Ordnance Factory Board, Hindustan Shipping. We are looking at Bharat Dynamics, Bharat Earth, Bharat Electronics, Hindustan Aeronautics. So these are the examples of the companies which are enabling the Atmanirbhar push in defense. Now, we must appreciate that some reforms are coming in DRDO. Now, DRDO works under the Ministry of Defense. Similarly, there is something called as Ordnance Factory Board. And there what happened is that the Ordnance Factory Board, it was broken OFB to defense PSUs. So 7 new companies were introduced which were somehow demerged. So Ordnance Factory Board is not a corporate entity as such, which is listed, but OFB was broken into new PSUs. New PSUs which can work with new energy and in a particular sector. So rather than having a single large company, sectoral experts were created. For example, look at the names. So one is Gliders India, one is Troop Comforts Limited. Now our soldiers, they need boots, they need clothes. So from clothes to ammunitions. So ammunitions in Munitions India Limited. So Ordnance Factory Board was broken into multiple PSUs, and PSUs can then be scaled up and eventually they can be listed the way we have Mazgaon Dock Limited, we have, let's say, the Garden Reach Shipbuilders, we have the Bharat Electronics Limited. So all these companies, they are listed, and once they are listed, these companies can also pick up money from the market. They can also, so fresh infusion of capital can happen through the market. Secondly, they will be more transparent in terms of showing their financials. Thirdly, there will be a fair competition in the defense sector. Parallelly, a new trend that we are also witnessing for the last 5 to 7 years is that our major conglomerates like Tata, like Mahindra, like Ashok Leyland, Adani, Reliance, and Larsen and Toubro, they are entering into the defense contractorship. They are looking at defense production, and they are opening up strategic tie-ups in terms of research and development and also in terms of production facilities. So companies like Bharat Forge, BDL, they are constantly working with private players to, let's say, go for some small minor contracts or part contracts where you have, let's say, a 700 crore order from Government of India and you are, let's say, giving 70 crore order to 2 companies. So 70 to 2 companies, so that these companies can also start and they can also be bought in the defense production ecosystem. And mind you, compare this with the kind of defense industrial complex that the United States has and the kind of influence they have there. It is because that the private sector, they participated a lot in terms of the defense needs of the country. Now, On the lines of the Ordnance Factory Board, DRDO reforms were to be done with the recommendation of a Vijay Raghavan committee. Now, the objective was to restructure DRDO and to enhance their roles, relationship, and collaboration with academia and industry. Now, what you can do is you can use this entire content. This entire content is something as a way forward also for other answers. So, what is the problem? Usually the problem is that we are not having a good collaboration, good pan-India network with academia, with research and development industry. So companies are operating independently, academia is independently operating, and what is the demand of the nation, that is on an independent level. So the idea is that what we need and what research and development is happening and what is being taught in our colleges, that should be in a tandem. So that is the idea, and simultaneously to reform DRDO and to come out of the old shackles. Now you must also engage today with MSMEs which can scale up as well as startups. So MSME, they can scale up and they can help in terms of smaller activities. Let's say forging. Can the MSME help in forging? Yes, the answer is yes. Then formulate incentive and disincentive linked to performance to attract and retain scientists. Now, can you retain talented individuals at low prices? The answer is no. The answer is a clear no. Why would Microsoft, why would Google hire the best of the best? Why would they go to a computer science branch in IIT Bombay, in IIT Delhi, in IIT Kharagpur, in IIT Kanpur, and then they would offer, let's say, the MANG companies, they would offer 1 to 2 CR in the California campus. And if they are not asking for the California campus, these large companies will at least go for 70 to 1 CR in, let's say, Hyderabad campus or Bengaluru for that matter. So if you are hiring good amount of talent, if you are hiring scientists, if the scientists are then creating values of 1,000 crores in terms of contribution to the company, in terms of, let's say, 5 scientists are working on a project, a missile system, a missile defense system, and that missile defense system one day gets a contract from Government of India of, let's say, 20,000 crores. So will the proceeds will be shared with the research and development engineers if you do not have any incentive, if you do not have any incentives for that matter? So the idea is to attract talent and to retain that talent and to avoid attrition, so that talent, once it is trained, it becomes extraordinary talent, and then there are chances of attrition. Why are these scientists of ISRO all the time getting offers from NASA? The idea is for a good life and for a promise of higher pay and higher opportunity. Then encouraging the involvement of NRI experts, foreign consultants, and promoting international collaboration. And finally, going for faster project execution and rationalizing lab structures. So having a pan-India network of smaller labs, it can be bypassed, and we can move to fewer labs but larger integrated and technology oriented labs. Now, what are the recommendations which are to be seen? A Defense Technology Council. Now, the Raghavan committee, it says the Prime Minister should now step in terms of what should be the defense, the research and development that is happening in terms of the defense sector. The Prime Minister should have a key role to play here, and so he recommends a Defense Technology Council which is headed by the Prime Minister, and parties to the council will be our Defense Minister and the NSA, and they will draft what kind of trajectory in terms of technology acquisition we should go forward. Then emphasizing the need for strategic overhaul to develop the high-end technology for future warfare, and today we must adopt warfare technologies in terms of drones, in terms of AI, in terms of integration of the already available technology into the defense industry. Then going for reforming DRDO and promoting an indigenous defense production ecosystem. Again, ecosystem, from boots to laces to glasses to advanced weapons like missile defense systems. So giving a larger role to private defense players. Now what happens is that this is also about technology diffusion. So if a private player is, let's say, creating these boots for our soldiers, so will the private player also be able to create good boots for us? Yes. Will it be able to, let's say a particular private company is not able to get much profit. It is not able to get much profit from supplying a car, let's say a Tata Safari, to the Indian military. But can I say that the engineers of Tata Motors, they will gain a lot of experience in designing this particular vehicle for the Indian military, and the dividends of this can be reaped in terms of producing passenger vehicles, in producing, let's say, trucks, in producing commercial vehicles. Now, the report recommended limiting DRDO's role to research and development. So DRDO, they are saying, should not involve in terms of creating prototypes, in terms of testing prototypes, in terms of going for mass production. Rather, its role is research and development, and production should be left to the experts of production, who are able to handle the industries, who are able to handle manufacturing. Then production and further development are proposed to be entrusted with selected private players. Now, what do you see? All the companies that you see in this particular image, are you not looking at all these companies working in tandem, and they are conglomerates of India who are involved in almost all the strategic sectors of India? So can you say that these companies can also work and they can support the PSUs already available and the research which is happening in terms of DRDO? So private participation is extremely important. Then, to attract and retain high quality manpower, streamline national defense research landscape by going for 10 national level labs, replacing the 40 old labs. Then going for 5 national test facilities which will be accessible to private players. And the idea is that, let's say I create a rail track, but multiple vehicles can run on the same rail track. Multiple vehicles can run on the road. I create the road. So DRDO has created the road, all the infrastructure. So why can't the private sector use this infrastructure in their research and development? Then more involvement of Prime Minister office. We discuss this in terms of the Defense Technology Council. Then bifurcation of the post of Secretary Research and Development in the Ministry of Defense, who is the same person who is the chairman of DRDO. So asking for bifurcation of this post. Let's look at the mapping of Ladakh. Now, few pointers that you should know in this region is that we are looking at first the Great Himalaya. You should draw this Great Himalaya. North of Great Himalaya, we have the Trans Himalaya. In Trans Himalaya, you are looking at 4 different ranges. One is the Kailas range. Then you are looking at Zaskar, you are looking at Ladakh, and you are looking at Karakoram. In Karakoram itself, we have the Karakoram Pass. In this Karakoram Pass itself, the China-Pakistan economic corridor is passing, which is a bone of contention between India and China, India and China-Pakistan combined. Right? Now, when we are looking at Himalayas, Himalayas are said to have syntaxial bend. 2 syntaxial bends are there. One syntaxial bend is at Nanga Parvat and the other is at Namcha Barwa. Right? So this particular region, the northwestern part, it is a place of very intense collision of Himalayas. Now when you look at the Great Himalaya, south of Great Himalaya is your Middle Himalaya. In Middle Himalaya, you have ranges like the Dhauladhar and the Pir Panjal. And if you want to remember the Pir Panjal range, remember something, that the Pir Panjal range, it divides the Kashmir Valley, it divides the Kashmir Valley and the Jammu Valley. On the other hand, the Dhauladhar, it is traversing through Jammu and places in Himachal known as, let's say, your Dharamshala, etc. On the other hand, Pir Panjal also, it is also going into Himachal in a place called Lahul and Spiti, and across this Pir Panjal only we have created the Atal Tunnel, beyond which you are able to access Lahul and Spiti, and beyond which you are able to access the Leh and Ladakh landscape. So in this region you have the Leh and Ladakh landscape. Now simultaneously you must also see that beyond these Middle Himalayas or Himachal, you have the Shivalik range. So you have Greater Himalaya, you have the Middle Himalaya, and you have the Shivaliks. So between Shivaliks and the Middle Himalaya, you have regions called the Dunes. Dunes are what? They are longitudinal valleys which are present between Shivalik and Middle Himalayas. Now look at the particular region Ladakh. So what we are saying is that you have parallel ranges in this format. So north of, look at the map here. Can I say that north of the Great Himalayas and the Pir Panjal range, you have the entire region of Leh and Ladakh. Now, one thing you should know is what are the different names that we see in the map, this particular map. So this is called the Wakhan corridor. Wakhan corridor, and through this corridor on the map we are able to touch Afghanistan, right? Very narrow piece of land through which we are able to connect to Afghanistan. Similarly, this is called Gilgit and this is called Baltistan. Now, Gilgit and Baltistan, these are the northern areas which are under Pakistan's occupation. On the other hand, we have parts of the Kashmir and the Jammu Valley which are again in their occupation. This is nothing but your Muzaffarabad, etc. All those regions. So this entire region has more similarity with Kashmir and Jammu. On the other hand, this region, this is more of a tribal in nature, Gilgit and Baltistan. Sparsely populated, these are more densely populated. What are the regions which are under Pakistani occupation? So this entire region. So Indian territory under Pakistani occupation. Now, this is your Kashmir Valley, this is your Jammu Valley, in between you have the Pir Panjal range. Acha. What about Kashmir Valley? So, the moment you are crossing Kashmir Valley, you are finding Zaskar. Then you are finding the range Ladakh. Then, in the north, you have the Karakoram range. This particular region is called the Shaksgam Valley. Now, this particular land was given by Pakistan to China. So, land belongs to India, occupied by Pakistan, ceded to China, and just south of this is our strategic Siachen Glacier. Here you have Siachen Glacier, and all these rivers that you are seeing, Shyok, Nubra, they are tributaries of Indus River system. Now you have here Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin is again part of the, so if this is the Great Himalaya, so north of this Great Himalaya you have very dry landscape. So in this dry landscape you have this cold desert region, and so Aksai Chin also has this kind of landscape where you have some mountains and interspersed are large plateaus which are nothing but they are flat and featureless, and simultaneously there is lot of rubble and you do not have vegetation. It is a cold desert region. So interspersed with these smaller mountains. Why these mountains are looking smaller? Because you are standing at a plateau. And please appreciate that this entire region has an average height of 4,000 meters. So Tibetan Plateau, Aksai Chin, you are looking at the Ladakh Plateau. So they are having very good height. Now, if you are looking at the conflict which happened in the Galwan Valley, so this is the region of Galwan Valley, and so it happened because of Durbuk and Daulat Beg Oldi. So Daulat Beg Oldi is the last point that we control. So Daulat Beg Oldi and Durbuk. So this road, DSDBO road, it was the bone of contention between India and China all along, and this is called what? The line of LAC, line of actual control, because we tend to agree with the McMahon line, but China doesn't agree. On the other hand, we have the LOC with Pakistan, and this is the Shaksgam Valley, this is Gilgit, this is Baltistan, this is Wakhan corridor, this is Srinagar in Kashmir Valley, this is Jammu city. Then you have Kargil where the war happened. This is part of the Union Territory of Leh and Ladakh. Now you have the lake Pangong So here, and you have Somorari here. So two important legs that are there. Let's look at PM Kisan. Now this is related to your prelims. So it was launched in 2019 and it is 100% funded from Government of India, works under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, and it is a CSS central sector scheme. Now the state will have to do only one thing, they will have to identify the beneficiary. Now this was creating a lot of problem because a lot of beneficiaries were not given, wrongful beneficiaries given. So now you also have the option of registering yourself in terms of as a beneficiary on the app, that is the PM Kisan app. And you must remember that this is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. So this Samman Nidhi is nothing but it's a direct benefit transfer, and it is like an experiment of a mini UBI. You can say this is the UBI of universal basic income that is given by the government for the farmers. And this is 6,000 rupees, 6,000 rupees per year in 3 equal installments of 2,000 each. The idea is to look at the financial needs of small and marginal farmers in terms of helping them in terms of procuring inputs like seeds, fertilizers, etc. And it also helps crop health and appropriate yields. It protects farmers from the clutches of these money lenders, these loan sharks, and it ensures continuance of farmers in farming activities. Now, the PM Kisan mobile app is developed by National Informatics Center or NIC. This is under MITI. Thank you so much. Feel free to approach us if you have any questions or any doubts regarding any session. Thank you so much. I hope it helped.